Welcome to Relationship Matters. Let's get going. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Relationship Matters. I'm going to introduce my guest in a minute, Chris Dollinger. But at first, I just want to let you know, we do this podcast and livecast because I really believe everything flows out of relationship. And I really believe that relationships really matter. And so that's why we do this. I think I've had discussions around family relationships, around business relationships, parenting relationships, all kinds of relationships on the show. And so I really encourage you to if you found us here on YouTube or on Facebook, by all means, subscribe and hit the bell so that you can be notified when we're having these shows. Of course, if you're not watching it live, you can always watch it later. You'll find it later. And then by Monday, it'll be out in podcast format on all the podcast platforms. You just simply search Relationship Matters by Mark Gordon, and you will find me there, and you can subscribe to podcast as well. We have all kinds of amazing guests on, and we take an hour out and we talk about relationships. And I tell you, in today's world, business relationships are really under fire right now. And so we're going to talk about that with our guest today. This is Chris Dollinger. Not only is he a cohort and a good friend, but he's my best friend, and we've known each other for a long time. So this should be fun because we like to banter, and so we might do a little bantering. Chris is a 30-year industry veteran in technology sector, which focuses on resellers and VAR community. Over the past 30 years, he has had the privilege of working with some amazing companies where his role focused on increasing revenues, profits, market share while enhancing the company's brand. His enterprise approach to sales has proven to be his secret sauce for success. We're going to talk about that in a bit. Working for companies like Polycom, Toshiba, Chris is currently the Director of Sales of Western Canada for Blue Star and a leading global distributor of specialty IT products. This team of 5 take care of over 700 resellers in the provinces of Canada. The fun fact, Chris attributes his biggest success in launching his family's skateboard company back in 2002. I remember the day that happened, where he and his wife and his 3 sons sold skateboards, along with sponsoring local riders, attending competitions, and supporting young people who were typically looked down on in society. And helping people and organizations thrive is more than just what he does. It's something that he lives out every day to the best of his ability. And I can actually agree with that because you've helped me tremendously through the years. And just for some focus, Chris has worked for me, and we've been partners in a business, and we've been, and now, I rely on him as someone who helps me in my business. So that's Chris. Chris, welcome. It's about time, right? I get you on the live cast.
It's about time, and good afternoon, Mark. It's great to be here. I'm glad that you invited me, and looking forward to what we're going to chat about,
Yeah, well, it's such an important subject right now, I think, with the great resignation coming out of COVID, with the inflation and the supply chain, concerns. I just think that if more than ever, the established relationships in business are going to be the difference maker in terms of keeping business. I know for you and I, we met in the business world. We met when I owned a telecommunications company and you worked for my competitor, and I poached you from the competitor, which was awesome. But then we developed friendship through the years, and now I would say we're probably more known as good friends than we are as work related, but then we've always done some business together too. So I really believe you can't separate the two. So But give us just a little view into what you're seeing today in the business world in terms of what's happening.
Yeah, well, outside of what you just talked about and all the major things, I think what we're seeing in business is loyalty is completely fractured now. The loyalty that we would enjoy, 10, 15, 20 years ago and the way we interacted, a little less technology. I find that today, that type of foundation of loyalty that we're used to is fractured now. We're in a society, as we know, that a number of years ago we went microwave. Everything had to be done right away. 2-3 minutes is all I'm going to wait. 5 minutes, just like you're warming up the stew in the microwave. We're not microwave anymore. We're nuclear. It's no longer I can even wait. It's like the moment I push the button, the moment I call you, the moment I email you, the moment I text you, the moment I place an order, I want instant access. And if you can't give it to me, however you started building a relationship, you can't give it to me the way I want it, then I have all these platforms to talk about how bad you are and what you are. So that loyalty that we used to enjoy, where you could maybe make a mistake, where there was a nurturing and a building of relationship, has been fragmented. And so the question is well, how do we gain loyalty again? And what does the new loyalty potentially look like, if there's such a thing as new loyalty, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we have the answers to that yet, but I think that we're seeing businesses testing and trying new things to see about doing that. So that's kind of what I see outside of the world upside down right now.
Yeah. And I just want to invite anybody that's watching, even if you see this later, but if you're watching live, for sure, make a comment, ask a question. We want this to be a conversation with you. And so it's not just Chris and I talking. Make sure you comment. It comes right into the studio here and I'll read it out. And if you have any comments, or even if you want to, heckle Chris, feel free to do that for any of his companion, his people. If you want to really give him a rough time, go ahead. That's allowed here. And you brought up a great point, Chris, because one of the pillars in my book is trust, and one of the ways you develop trust is through loyalty. And so this loyalty thing is really, really important, I think. And so what are some ways that you can see that companies could start to develop and shift to to mend that fracturing of loyalty?
Well, it's challenging because of the nuclear process that everybody has right now, and wanting it and going like that. But I think what happens is you really have to have empathy. You have to put yourself in the shoes of others and try to make sure you truly understand what's important to them. In the business, in the personal relationship, that's important, but in the business side of things, we work with companies that rely on us to provide them with goods and services so that they can send to their end user and everything like that. And so you really have to, focus on what's important to them. And the way you do that is part of that. We'll talk a little later, like you said, about the enterprise approach, and that is to get curious, to get curious about what is it. And that's why you see in retail, for example, what's the customer journey? What's the customer experience like? You can see that when you go to a store today compared to what you did 10 years ago, it's quite different, right? And it's that. So how do you really have to be very much thinking about how that individual is interacting today in the world and the way they do commerce with everything, and then how you can adapt your teams and your resources to adapt to that. Because I don't know, this is a bit of a controversial subject, I don't know if you're going to get the type of loyalty that we used to get 10, 15 years ago. Don't get me wrong. There's lots of loyal customers, lots of loyalty still out there. People still like to enjoy doing business with you as an individual, with you as your company, the things that you provide for them, and so on and so forth. But overall, we're starting to see a fracturing of that. And that's why I think it's really about the empathy part of it, which I think you also mentioned in your book, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I don't know if you're seeing it, but I'm seeing a bit of a counter movement happening now, where when you do reach out, when you do connect relationally with your clients, with your if you see them as more than just somebody that to sell to, like if you actually take the time and invest and build in relationship with them, I actually see that there's an opportunity right now in the business world. If you do that, you're going to actually regain that loyalty, and you're the one that they're going to be loyal to. I do believe that. I know that when I say these things, sometimes it goes against the whole technology thing, but I think people are teched out. I think they want connection. I think people are missing connection. Are you seeing any of that in the business world?
Interesting you bring that up. We have, like everybody else, have taken that two-year plus hiatus of actually going out and seeing anybody. And a
Yeah.
company like ours is well known for getting right into talking with our customers more than just the phone and the email. We're right in the face to face, and we've done lots of things that nurture that type of a thing. But two plus years of not being that way and being on the Zooms and everything, there is something. And I was on my first business meeting this week with one of our vendors who flew into town, an actual dinner. We went to dinner, and I have to say, I wasn't sure what to expect because I've had dinner with my wife and everything like that, but I wasn't sure. And I got to tell you, it was really refreshing because, again, it's a term I've heard you use over the years, and the power of presence. The
Yeah.
moment we're together, if we're eating or whatever, and we're talking body language, nuances, the ability to learn. Again, if you're curious and authentic, you're gonna. So I think that that there's a real interesting desire to do that again. And as a matter of fact, we are looking at starting to go out and meet more customers live now over the next, starting in the next 2 months for sure. And our team is comfortable and all that stuff like that. So yeah, there is. And I think that we're also seeing that this summer, we're talking about, do we do events and what do we do for customer engagement? I think this summer people are just going to go take real holidays. They're just going to take real holidays and go do real stuff with
Yeah.
real people all
Yeah.
day long,
Yeah.
right?
They're ready for it. That's for sure.
They're ready for it. There's always a need. Mark, I was thinking about this as I was preparing for this. If you don't have a relationship, you can have everything you want, but if you don't have the relationship, good old saying type of thing is, well, then you're just a lonely human being, right? That
Yeah.
isn't going to thrive. And you talk a lot about that in the way with the plants and things in your book and stuff like that. So it's important, right?
Yeah. Well, what I said in the book was that even if you're on the side of a mountain all by yourself, you need to learn how to relate. You got to relate to the land, you got to relate to
Yeah.
the environment, you got to relate to yourself. And so you always have that. And I find, by the way, people who have a difficult time relating to themselves, some people would call that a low emotional intelligence. When they have a hard time relating to themselves, they have a very difficult time relating to others. And I believe, and this is maybe a good banter moment, but I really believe companies have got to start looking at soft skills as essential skills, because I really believe that although in the normal business world, sure, it's probably not their job to teach people how to relate and how to envision a future, or those soft skills, how to deal with people and whatnot. But I think it's actually become that because what's been proven is employee engagement goes up significantly when they feel cared for, when they feel like the company cares about them. So I think we're going to see a resurgence of that coming out of COVID. We need to create connection opportunities where we bring real skills to the table and help them. What do you think of that?
Well, soft skills is not one of my expertise, as you know. Okay,
I know, that's why I asked.
sometimes I think that might be a bit kumbaya at the end of the day. However, having been trained in the bulk of my career, the first half of my career in management, by people who were carrot and stick, approach and
Yeah.
everything like that, realizing in the last 8, 9, 10 years that carrot and stick doesn't work at all, and anybody that's still doing it, good luck. I say good luck to
Yeah.
your business, and everything. And so you do have to get a bit closer. And where does that always start? We hear a lot about this, and it's interesting. Culture. We
Yeah.
have to develop culture. Well, Silicon Valley did that by getting foosball tables and beanbag chairs and latte machines, and then they said, "Here's culture." Well, you can see that that's just things, right? At the end of the day, that's just, I feel good. I can play foosball at lunchtime. Okay. And nothing wrong with that, I guess. but that doesn't have a lasting stay in terms of the individual and the relationship with their boss,
Exactly.
their coworkers, their customers, right, and everything like that. So we talk about culture, but it's one of the hardest things for companies to develop nowadays.
Yeah.
I don't care how good you are. I don't care how good you are as a company, how big or how small you are. It is a challenge to convert to a culture of starting with trust. Because
Yeah.
again, you talked about a trust. If I trust you as my boss and you trust me as an employee, first of all, if I'm innocent till proven guilty, and that's the attitude,
Yeah.
then I'm able to do things like fail a little bit,
Right.
and not feel like I'm going to get my head lopped off, right?
Fail
So
forward. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. So when we go back to the soft skills side of things, those in leadership roles, and even if you're not in a leadership role and you're working with coworkers in cubicles and beside you and stuff like that, it's the ability to how do you relate to each other. And again, I'm going to be a lot about the empathy and the putting other people in other people's shoes. I'll end on this piece right here. I heard someone say this years ago, and it's been a mantra from us. We when things happen at work or whatever, we dig in, like we're defensive and everything. And I always say, do you want to focus on being right, or do you want to keep a friend?
Yeah.
And so that's where again,
Yeah.
soft skills, culture, trust, things like that. I mean, you tell me about soft skills because I don't know anything really much about that. I just try to be a good guy.
Yeah. Well, I think that I think the companies that ignore that part. See, you referred to Silicon Valley, and giving them foosball tables and free lunch and all that kind of stuff may have showed care, but it wasn't actual care. Actual care is coming alongside people who are struggling and helping them be successful, and it's shifting from a top down style or a managing, like a lording over style, to a coming under and lifting up style of leadership. And I call it strength based leadership, where we begin to actually empower the people around us, and I say power to rather than power over. And so I think that is the fundamental shift I'm seeing. The companies that are getting that and doing the power to model, I think, are the ones that are going to see loyalty happen. They're the ones that's who people want to work for because they feel protected. I read a story on LinkedIn yesterday about a single mom whose teenage daughter was in a car accident, and the boss right away said, take the rest of the day off. Go make sure she's okay. We'll cover your work. Next day again, we'll cover your work. By the way, what do you guys want to eat for dinner? We're sending you supper tonight. See, that's not just showing care. That's actually caring. That's
Yeah.
actually living it out. So that's my little tidbit on that. Hey, I want to remind people, comment, ask questions in the comments, please. Send us through some questions. So I want to shift right now, Chris, and just ask you, because you're touching on it. What is the enterprise approach? I mean, you are known for this. You coined the phrase. Well, you coined a couple. The one is doing business at no doing working at the speed of business, which I thought was really good. And the other one is you coined was this enterprise approach, and you've applied it to everywhere you've worked. I've watched it over the years. Just explain what the enterprise approach is for anybody that might be watching and want to know.
Well, it's interesting. The enterprise approach is just, again, my own little personal thing that
Yeah.
I guess I'd call my benchmarks of what I try to strive for all the time. And it really is five things, okay, that I focus on. Number one, I still think, being a bit of an old school guy, that in everything you do, be professional. Be professional and respectful. Be professional in your approach. We're seeing the demise of professionalism today. Nobody showing up on meetings on time, lack of communication, that kind of stuff is. And although people are going to say to me, Chris, that's just minor. I think that when you act professional, you show respect to the individual that you're working with. So I really feel that, the way I communicate, I do lose my mind like everybody else. My wife will tell you I'm a reactionary human being. I have a little sign here that says react or response. Which one are you going to do? Are you going to react, Chris, or are you going to just respond, type of thing? But I think, so professionalism. I think it's just something that has to be a mainstay in any kind of business, in any kind of role that you have. The other four things wrap around: be creative. we're in a stage right now from when you're trying to grow revenue, market share, brand awareness, et cetera, and everything like that. How do you think different? You know, what kind of a risk are you prepared to take to adapt to what I said earlier about the, you know, what does your customer really want from you? What, you know, like that. So differentiating yourself is one thing. And I've always tried to do that. I have been known to be the salmon that swims upstream, you know, constantly. And as I jump past and the grizzly bears are trying to bite me and everything, I just keep on going, right? Type of thing. I'm you know, swimming upstream, right? So, you know, be creative, be professional. Then this is one of my biggest ones right now. And I see a lack of this in business, particularly in the salesperson. Okay. Be curious.
Mm.
You know, when you decide to meet somebody for the first time, or you've been engaged with a customer that you've done business with, and there's maybe a couple of people you've dealt with, what about being curious about getting to know more people in the organization? No longer does one person make a decision
Right.
on anything, right? So who else can you get to know? But here's the key, Mark. If you're going to be curious, you better be authentic, and that's the
Right.
fourth one, right?
Yeah.
Because you really have to want to understand the organization, understand the people, learn about them, not learn about them so that, you know, it's like, oh, the guy likes golfing. It's like, hey, Jimmy, did you watch the Masters last week? I mean, that's fine, but that's not, if that's, you're doing that just to placate them and just to say, because I know they like golf,
Yeah.
you're not being authentic, right?
Right.
So, you know, be curious in understanding what their problems are and everything like that. I'll sidetrack for a quick second. We used to talk in business, and a lot of people do this. What keeps you awake at night, Mr. Customer?
Right.
Keeps you awake. We're beyond that in our world. You know, it's not what keeps you awake at night. Allow me to tell you what's going to keep you awake at night.
Yeah.
This is where the curiosity as a professional that you've done
Right.
you've learned, you've researched, you're curious about what they are as a company, and you come to them and say, this is what you need to be concerned about. This is what's going to make you not sleep at night. And by the way, as a trusted
Mm.
advisor, as an individual that cares, let us show you some ways to help you out with that, right?
Right.
And then the last one sort of ties in with my first one. Be professional is like an old school, like, you know, just be a pro. This other one is work hard.
Right.
I think people are working hard, but I think they're working hard because they're using the word busy as a way of saying they're working hard. They're
Right.
busy. But I'm talking about working hard, like focused work, you know, every day, putting in the time, putting in the energy to help, you know, your organization. Now, here's the fun part though, right? Why would any employee want to work hard, like really hard, when they don't own a piece of the company? Because the owners are going to work hard, but why wouldn't they?
Right.
Well, this is where that culture comes in. You know, do they
Yeah.
buy into your vision? Do they do that? So the enterprise approach is really about these 5 fundamentals that you apply, or I apply, try to apply. I'm not perfect, by the way. Try to apply on a daily, weekly basis that separates me. When you get an email from me, it's a very clear and concise email. Like, it's not, you know, I'm not, you know, typing in LOLs and, you know, whatever else. It's just very clear. It's always the little things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, what's interesting, Chris, is because you and I banter about the soft skills conversation and about how much we should care, just get your job done, you used to say. And
Results
it's like,
matter in my world, right?
but what you just described as the enterprise approach is exactly what I'm talking about. Those are
No,
soft skills.
no,
Yes,
no.
they are. Those are soft skills. You got to teach people how to be professional. There's no plumb line today. They've lost it completely because of social media and all the things that I don't think we should take it for granted that young people today coming up know what professionalism is or what it looks like. And I'm not saying stay stuck in the old school. I'm saying when you apply all that you said, you can be creative and innovative, but you can still be professional. And so I think when you're teaching people professional skills, I think being professional relationally is also part of that. So we actually, I love that I caught you, because
you caught me.
Those are essential.
Like, I'm a soft skills expert now. Woohoo! That's because I read the book and I'm ready to go.
There you go. You got to write a book, The Enterprise Approach by Chris Dollinger.
That would be like, 1900 pages of my drabble going on,
I'll edit it for you down to the 25 pages that you actually said.
Exactly.
Anyway, so that's so good though, Chris, like that enterprise approach. But let me ask you, why is it so difficult for companies to grab a hold of that? Like I know, not exception of the current company you're working for, but in past ones, I know you had frustrating because they just didn't seem to want to grab it. They didn't want to take that extra moment, that extra little bit of expense, the extra attention that it took to go to that excellence level. How do we get people there?
Controversy alert coming up, okay?
Yeah.
Business is too good right now for a lot of sectors. Has been for a while. There's going to be a lot of people, I'm hoping the comments will come in. They're going to be, what are you talking about? I'm struggling. Hey, listen, I understand. There's a lot of people struggling. Don't think for a moment that I don't know about what I see, and I see that all the time. But overall, just look at the news. Take a look at a little bit of business news. Take a look at the grocery stores right now.
Yeah.
I mean, are they going to be focusing on culture and stuff like that? Or are they going to try to get product on the shelf so you can buy more chips, right? I think it's because business has been good and booming and thriving overall in a lot of sectors, not every sector. Where do you have the time, and who do you go to help you? Because there's lots of training out there, and there's lots of great training, but where do you find the time to find the right organization to come in and help you do that, right? And help you. And by the way, do these 5 things line up with your values as a company? Because you might look at that and go, well, we're an organization that we're professional. I mean, our version of professional is the way we dress or how we communicate, and that's their way of their kind of thing is. So how do you teach them at a benchmark that I work at? And it's not always the same for everybody, right? I think teaching people how to be curious and authentically curious, because if you really don't care about your coworker or the customer or whatever like that is, I don't care how curious you are. It's of no value, right? So how do you teach that? I think you have to go back to the basics of saying, how do we build a culture of trust so that people come here? Companies will never, ever, people that say, our business is like a family business. It's like a family. No, there's no such thing as that. Okay. You know why? Know why? Because tell me the last time one of your family members failed and you fired them.
Divorce rates at 60%. That's my argument. Listen, I
gotta go, Mark. Sorry to call. I got a conference call. I don't know what the heck just happened there. Okay.
Anyway.
You got me, I tell you.
Well, yeah, because we actually do fire people, and how many parent child relationships are strained. Adult kids not talking to their parents. I think it's actually a pandemic in our society. This relational breach. We're too easily walk away. You hit it right off the top. The loyalty thing. We too easily walk away from problems or troubles or things instead of trying to stay and work on them and work through them and heal through them. And that's I was on a master class call this morning, master group, whatever. Mastermind. I was trying to think of the name with a bunch of business people, and that came up. There was some real professionals there saying, I can't tell people when I'm struggling. And I'm thinking to myself, and we actually talked about it, it's like, if you're struggling at home, that struggle is going to come into the workplace. It doesn't matter how much you don't want it to. It oozes out of you and your efficiency goes way down. And vice versa. If you're having tension at work and stress at work, you can't just turn it off and close it off at the door, because you can't turn off emotions. Otherwise you lose the good ones as well as the bad ones. So I feel like we're in an era right now that we actually do need to address this at the business level. How can we create a safe environment that people can say when they're struggling, so that they can actually say, like, so it is, we use the term, like my daughter uses the term my work wife. because she has a good friend at work that they've really connected and they work together. And she says, and they joke and say, that's my work wife. So there is this family bleed into business. I think the separation between business and home is been erased by COVID, working at home, the stay at home working model. Like, how many people aren't going back to the office?
Yeah.
How many offices are saying, hey, we just saved a pile of money, let's just close that office and let people work from home? But that creates this separation. It creates this isolation. Throw it back at you. Push
Well,
back.
we do spend the bulk of our time at work, right? Pre-COVID.
Yeah.
We do spend a lot of time, and then so building real good relationships within the organization is imperative, unless you just want to sit in the corner and do your thing, right? You're gonna need to rely on somebody sometime to help you. You know, you don't want to be the weakest link in the chain, right?
Yeah. Well, let's use you and I as the example, okay? Because
Okay.
we're both transparent people. Me more than you. When we first met, we didn't like each other.
Nope.
Like, we've admitted that. We've talked about it. I thought you were arrogant and bossy and whatever, and you thought I was like a spineless rubber, whatever. I don't know what it was, but we really didn't connect at first in the business sense. And we were competition too. So I get there was a little bit of that. But as we got to know each other, and as we took the time and fought through some of those things, and then we went through, just being real, the company that I own that you work for, we went through bankruptcy. We lost the business, and you were affected by that. You lost employment. You had to move with your family, find another job. And yet somehow, and I'm sure there was days where you say, what the heck is that Mark doing? And I probably had days where I said, what the heck? Why didn't Chris sell more?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, but somehow we were able to work through the conflicts that you and I had. And I think that's why we have the level of friendship we have today, because we worked through those things and we've been open and we've been able to get through it. And I think that is a quality that people in the work world, business world, need to develop: resiliency in relationships within the organization.
Well, and that takes work. And that's the other thing about it too, is that investment is the investment worth it, and what are we focusing on in that? So let me give you if it's going to be transparency hour now, let's go there, okay, for a second, all right? So I just celebrated 36 years of marriage to my current wife, my only wife, Lori. So she's going to see this and go, what?
Yeah.
When we first got married, we did the typical, you just get married, you move in, and it's like the toothpaste and all that usual stuff and everything like that. And what I found after about a year is I started to let things start to bug me a little bit, I'm like, all those little things started to add up and add up and add up, to the point where I could probably have put a list of 76 things that I didn't like right now at that current time, right? But I got a bit of a knock on my head one day, and it was in the middle of the night, and it was kind of like, Chris, you have been able to come up with 76 or 176 things you don't like, or that's bugging that you like that. But why don't you find one thing that's good? Well, I actually went and did that, which then turned into 3 things, which then turned into 5 things. And all of a sudden, those 5 or 8 or 10 things that I started to focus that were good outpaced and took away the 176 things that I met, like that. But that took some work from me too, as an individual. Yeah. I recently had some conflict. I hope my boss doesn't kill me about this, but I had some conflict within our organization with an individual, and that person ended up reaching out to me. We had a great talk. I decided not to take a defensive approach. I decided to focus on the few good things. That individual straightened me out a little bit, which was good too, right? It's not always one person's fault, right? When in relationships, right? And since then, we are able to have a great communication, but I'm sure that person is working a little hard to continue, because we need to be cohesive, right? I'm working hard, but now it's becoming natural because I've focused on the 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 good things rather than the 200 that
Yeah.
we typically go down the path with and everything. So I think we got to work hard. I think
Yeah.
but it's got to be important to you. Is that important to you at the end of the day? And companies are saying, it's important, but how do you help the team see that as an important thing, right?
Yeah, and I think that leaders that are maybe watching, and even your boss if he watches this, I mean, I think it is on the leadership's responsibility or shoulders to create the environment. I always say you got to take the values from the wall to the heart. How do you get your people to take those values that you've placed on a wall, written like in nice big bright letters?
Yes.
How do you get them to write those on their heart? Because that's where loyalty comes from. That's where they will work hard then to make those inner relationships work. Because here's what I do know: if the inner relationship work isn't done for the team, in other words, the team, there's division within the team, there isn't an ability to work that through that, it will absolutely affect the customers, the clients. It flows outwards, whatever. So if there's toxicity in the team, there's going to be toxicity with clients, and they'll see the turnover. So the investment is to actually not just increase productivity or efficiency, but it's also to be a place that people want to do business with. When they see the old adage, right? If you take care of the people, the team will take care of your customer. And I think that that's where we're at today, where I think that's where leaders need to really focus. Maybe this is controversial. I believe there's a leadership crisis in the
Oh,
world today. I mean, we
oh,
see it everywhere.
every huge vacuum in that. By the way, if I look like I'm a little distracted, my Western Canada team is instant messaging me because apparently it looks like they're watching this right now.
Well, tell them to
They're
comment, for crying out loud.
they're
Comment
saying
on.
things like, "I got to buy dinner for Lori tonight" after that
Oh,
comment,
yeah.
and so if I seem like I'm a bit distracted, I'm looking at this barrage of like, look what
Well,
Dollinger's doing,
well,
right? So,
put it into the YouTube chat there. We want to hear those things.
well, I don't know why they're not putting it in the chat. That's
Heckle.
a great idea. Let everybody see what's going on. I got nothing to hide and everything like
Yeah,
that.
like
Um,
heckle
but
Chris. Go ahead and heckle him. We want that.
um, yeah, I mean, you said that it, you money is important in work. Money's important in business. It's
Yeah,
profitability. But when you feel valued and you feel trusted, which is hard to do sometimes, but good leaders know how to do that. When you feel
yeah,
valued and trusted and you feel safe enough to have a conversation. There's been you and I in business side, and we've had a lot of staff and teams and people, and I even customers really open up to us, right?
yeah.
Really open up to. I went through a massive crisis in 2010, as you know, Mark. You were
Right.
there,
Yeah,
and it took me 2 years to climb out of that. And now with the empathy that I have when I'm talking to a customer or someone who is strong enough to just hint about that, allows me to sort of help and be maybe a resource and everything. But again, I've got to put a bit of work into that. I've got to be authentic. I've got to be curious about that. And then all of a sudden, you become. I always like to say it. I've got a lot of business friends. I got
yeah.
some friends like you. How long have we been friends for, by the way?
Or 32 years, somewhere
Yeah, I
like
thought so
that.
too. But I've got lots of business friends too. And the reason why I call
Yeah,
them business friends is we're not always out there chatting and doing all this, but we can actually talk about hard subjects.
yeah.
And I think it's important that you create that kind of an environment where it's safe for you to do that. Yeah, I'll still call you a dingbat if you're a dingbat. And that's unfortunate, but that's just me, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's what's the old adage? Like, be careful what you ask for when you ask Chris's opinion.
Yeah. By the way, I'm getting comments. I look very red. Maybe it's just my
Do
lighting, but
you?
I'm not red.
It's probably your lighting.
It's my lighting. Yeah. So anyway,
So,
let's carry on. I mean, I think we're a little fragmented. I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about relationships all the way around, but in business like that, it's how are you going to enhance that? And remember, we serve in businesses two types of customers, right? We serve an external customer, the ones that give us money for transactions, and our internal customers, which is our teams.
yeah,
And I
Exactly.
find that companies don't differentiate that. And then if they do, they alienate it in different ways. But at the same time, the characteristics of building a solid relationship, whether it's an external customer or an internal customer, is the same thing, really, at the end of the day. Be
Yeah,
there, be professional, be someone you can rely on, that kind of a thing, be, trust, so on and so forth.
so true. So true. And look at the heart care piece. Like what would it do to one of your VARs that you heard maybe was struggling with something, whatever. Maybe you heard they had a loss in their life of some sort, whatever. What would it look like if Blue Star as a team responded and just showed some heart care, some love to that person, some care for that person? Do you think that would develop loyalty to Blue Star?
I think it would provide a version of loyalty, but more importantly, it would provide a fairly deeper connection.
Exactly.
I'm funny that you brought that up, because actually, believe it or not, we're one of those few companies that have that type of relationship with our resellers, that when something does happen, I can probably tell you, out of the 12 salespeople across Canada, pretty well most of them already would know something like that, and especially on the executive team, and those types of things that are done
Yeah.
for each other like that have gone a long, long way. I'm not saying everybody's not going to be loyal like they used to be before. Don't get me wrong with that. There are still
Right.
lots of people that loyalty is a very important thing, but I think it's just a new flavor of it. But the connection that you have, which
Right.
then deep connection, provides you the ability to have more trust,
Yeah.
feel safer, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think that, and I think we're seeing companies trying to do that, because their customers and their teams are slowly, this is another place for them to go to try to find some solace, some help, right, and everything like that. So
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to a mutual friend of ours today, and they actually made that comment that a lot of times workplace is a place of escape or solitude, or a place that they get validation that they can't get at home, or they can't get other places, and so they throw themselves, almost addictively into work because they feel validation there. So it's interesting that you know that if we're conscious of that, we can actually do something as corporations, as organizations. But I really want to focus in on this connection thing, because in my strength-based leadership thing I do with companies, I always say, connect before you direct, because they're going to respond a lot better if you do. So talk to me a little bit more about some ways that you can connect better with your clients. What are some things you can do to connect better with them?
well, I'm going to think maybe a little outside of just trying to use technology and tools and resources. Like
Yeah.
that's pretty straightforward and everything like that. I got to go back to the enterprise approach, Mark.
Yeah.
I think you got to be curious, but again, curious on authenticity have to be the same. I think you have to focus on not always trying to be right and be the smartest person in the room. You have to just
Mm,
be a real person, right? And if you're being authentic and you're curious, you're going to start to learn more about people. And the more you learn and the more serious you are about learning people, the more you have the ability to connect. I've connected with lots of customers on all kinds of different fronts, whether it's a very, very personal, emotional front, or whether it's a very tough business part of it all. My curiosity has afforded me the ability to understand business sort of upside down and sideways, which means that I understand cash flow problems
yeah.
with business. I understand more than just understand it, and so the question is as I'm connecting and learning with you about this, and then where my value would come in, and again, because we're all looking for something, what's in it for me, right?
Yeah.
Is me helping you get through that, me
Mhm.
removing obstacles for you. But
Yeah.
the connection with customers, and I'm always talking because we already have a big broad base of customers, is just that authentic way of saying, I want to get to know you, but not say it that way, but just in terms of just being curious with them. I research a lot, and I find it's, I'm 58 years old, and you think you'd be slowing down and getting tired, but there's so many resources to learn about people and everything. Every meeting I go to, there's 15, 20 minutes of
Yeah.
preparation in there. I know what that person's like. I know what what they've posted and what they've said, and everything like that. It gives me a flavor, to sort of do that. So it's about that curiosity. So I think that you keep being curious, and then hopefully you can learn more and then allow yourself to connect. But you got to want to, right?
Yeah.
Remember you said earlier about the sale. The sale is no longer about the transaction.
Yeah.
The transaction will be there, whether they do it with you or someone else, right? It's how you're going to make them, what's in it for them, and how you're going to make them feel, right? And not by understanding them.
Yeah, I think if you can, make others successful, you're successful, right? So I think that there's a piece to that now where maybe our role is more of a facilitator or coach than it is leader or manager nowadays, like in business. I think if you can, and one thing I will say, Chris, you do live out the enterprise approach in the sense that curiosity is what drives your research. And I think that I would rather use the technology to do the research to build some curiosity. So when I'm speaking to them live, I'm informed. Like I've been in meetings with you before where you actually say, yeah, you do this, right? And whatever. And they're, wow, you know us. Like it actually creates connection when you take the time to invest in research and know them. So when you know your customer and you know what drives them, you know what their company values are, you have a way of connecting with them much deeper relationally because you've done that research.
I've also had the opposite.
Yeah.
My wife Lori can't stand how curious I am because she'll be doing something. I'll be like, "Why are you doing that? What are you doing right there? Why are you doing that?" And she's like, "You're nagging me," and I'm like, "No, I just want to know why you're doing it and what's going on. Why would you want to know that?" She says, "I don't know, because I just want to know." And I have a little nickname, Curious Chris. My kids call me that. Oh, Curious Chris. Because I'm just curious. But everybody's like, "You're asking a lot of questions, Chris. You're asking a lot of questions." So maybe I'm annoying too.
And they might call it nosy, but it's but yes, curiosity does sometimes kill the Chris cat.
Yeah, so it stems from authenticity, but sometimes the way it comes out, it might look like a nagger, right? So I'm just nagging everybody, right?
Yeah. Well, that's it's so good. We've only got a few minutes left here. What are some things that you want to address? What you got here? You got an audience of peers and others. Where do you think, just put on your futurist hat for a minute, where do you think we're going in the next couple of years with this whole mess we have in supply chain and inflation and all this kind of stuff? What are you forecasting and seeing the company's response should be?
Well, I think first and foremost, I'm going to talk globally for a second here.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're gonna full circle back to basics again, meaning back to basics, meaning we have allowed ourselves the social media gong show that's gone on and all of the stuff, pounding us on a lot and just getting ourselves spun out of control, both personally and professionally. And I think we're going to realize that, that these platforms and all the things that are going on with that have become less and less relevant to us anymore, because we want to connect up with real people doing real things with real information and everything like that. Yeah. I think businesses need to understand that that although we've got the supply chain issues and everything like that, is stay close to who you are working with, do all that you can to provide the resources. And here's the biggest thing. It's funny how I don't see this too often out there, but regardless of your size, you've got to learn to be nimble. You've got to move to what's happening right then and there. If you're not, and you decide you're going to entrench yourself because that's the way we've always done it. And hey, by the way, because we've done it that way, it's because it's worked. It's always worked, and so you've got to be nimble to pivot really quickly to adapt to what's going on there. So I think we're going to go back to, the world's always going to have some kind of new thing coming in to take us off guard and everything like that. But I think we're always going to be wanting to stay close to people. We're going to be wanting to connect. We're going to want to find ways to help people more. The people that want to truly help people are the ones that are successful. Yeah. If you want the transaction, then you know what? It's like our business, you know, and we're okay with two things in ours. We can be a bank and a warehouse. We're a supplier. That's what we are. You buy your wholesale goods from us, we're a
Yeah.
supplier, and we got no problem with that. That's the core plumbing of our business. Plumbers
Right.
put pipes in, right? You know, that's the
Yeah.
core part of their business. That's it. But if you want to be a partner, then
Right.
that becomes this two-way relationship building that you have to do, you know,
That's
where I go again, the enterprise approach, where we dance together with good and bad. You know, I find that, you know, we're like any other company. We make mistakes, right? But how many
mm,
times have you dealt with organizations where you make mistakes, and because of the way things are going, they just fluff it off?
yeah.
Supply chain, sorry about that, but they don't really try to help fix it. And so we've become accustomed and immune now to that idea that everybody's got good customer service, and we get, you know, sort of crapped on, and we just kind of
Yeah.
move on. But then, you know, I think we're going to go back to basics, where people are going to value the things that you do in a business with them and everything, if you're paying attention to them.
Yeah, that's so good. Communication is so important, right? It's, you know, it's king. I know a lot of people, they're embarrassed because they can't deliver on something, so they just like ignore the problem,
Yeah.
and then you leave the person hanging. I found that when I actually get out of my comfort zone and call them and explain it and walk with them and how can I help you until that happens or whatever, I always find then they actually, you know, I help them find a solution. Now I'm part of the solution instead of just ignoring the problem. And and I think it creates a greater connection and bond. I think you nailed it. It's getting back to the basics of relational connection. And I think that's actually in families as well. It's at business, it's on every level. We need to just discover that. I do you think, and because I believe this, but do you think that the 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 efficiency of automation has really hurt that connection? You know, I think like even for my business, I'm looking at ways of taking it online and you know, automating things and all that, CRM systems, all these things. But you lose connection in that. Like, how do you keep the authentic connection when you have all of this automation?
Well, I think it's a 1-2 punch. I think you
Yeah,
have to have automation, because why?
yeah,
Because I talked earlier about everything being nuclear right now.
yeah, right,
Automation is going to allow you to satisfy that nuclear urge your customer has to get stuff now,
yeah,
whether it's information, whatever, answers, whatever like that is. But this is where people will rely on automation and chatbots and all the different things and the AI that's going on there, and then they'll collect all this massive amounts of data, but they won't
right,
know what to do with it. So then that's why I don't believe in sales, for example, the sales profession is going to die by automation. I think the fact that a person speaking to a person, and, you know, again, empathy and body language and communication is going to help you be able to go and solve problems, fix things, and make things happen for people. So it needs to be a symbiotic relationship. You
yeah,
need to have the automation for the nuclear portion of it all, but you also still have to have the people person. And a lot of us still, you know, are hiding behind our emails and everything. And it's funny because the moment you email 36 times back and forth to solve a problem, and then you pick up the phone, you'll realize right away, even when you're getting your head kicked in, you know, yelled at and everything, if you just deal with it properly and professionally, all of a sudden the problem gets solved. But you had 36
right.
emails before that, you know.
And what was the time value of that?
Well, and the frustration level and the emotional toll, it's like you're on an email going, I want to punch this guy in the face, you know, and he's like, I'm never doing business with you. And it's just, you know, it's just a massive amount of stress that just comes on. And
Yeah,
that's always going to happen. Don't get me wrong. We're not going to live in a utopia world. But I want to sort of maybe end on the one thing too, is when we talk about, you know, the future and talk about just engaging with people and everything. My boss has said this many, many times, and it's very, very true. You know, in business today, although we like to separate business from home, it's kind of a challenge. Um, don't be afraid to say I'm sorry, and don't be afraid to say thank you. Because
wow,
at the end of the day, can you imagine what happens when you actually authentically listen to someone
yeah,
and then you say, I'm sorry we did this, but we'll do our best? Again,
yeah,
clear communication. Or when someone does something out of the ordinary, gives you a large order that you've never seen before, or just, did something, sent a nice note to you, and you pick up the phone and you go, I just want to say thank you for that, right? Thank you for doing that. It meant a lot to me and everything like that.
Yeah.
And at that point, there's connection,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So by automating on the one side, it'll give you the time and space to do the relational piece on the other side.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said it better than that, Mark. That's
Yeah.
I'm going to steal that.
You please do. Just credit me and send me a check. So so yeah, because that's really what we're talking about here. The automation's okay and necessary, but make sure you use that time to then make those personal touches. I'll finish this off with maybe with my part with this story. There, if you remember in Calgary, because that's where you live, there's the white hat lady. For years and years, she's not doing it anymore, but she was the hat. She was known as the hat white because she was the one that greeted dignitaries and everything, gave them a white hat, and she wore a white hat. I met with her one time because she was doing some work with Impact Society, or organization in Calgary I worked with for a while, and she showed up to the appointment with a jar, like a mason jar, with all the ingredients of a cookie. And she said, I just wanted to give you this gift to remember our meeting, to memorialize our meeting. And I encourage you to take it home. And you've got everything you need there to make a batch of cookies and enjoy it with your family. I have never forgotten that experience.
Wow.
It was the most simple thing. And on the tag, it had her contact info. And it was like, wow, like that's back to the basics, right? Leave something with them to remember you or remember the meeting. And I think that is such a great lesson. You can even do that on Zoom. I was on a call one time and all of a sudden my inbox, I got, a gift card or something. And it was like, hey, I just sent you all a gift card to thank you for joining me. I thought, wow, I'm going to remember that. Right. So I just want to, I kind of want to thank you, Chris, that you brought up some really good points today. I love the enterprise approach. If you're watching this today and you know somebody in business that could benefit from this conversation, please send them, share this video with them. And I know it will really be good for them. Also, I have to tell you, Chris, my wife made a comment, says, wow, I have to remember the Chris cat. So you're going to probably take some heat on that. Sorry. And Blue Star team, go ahead and give them heat on that. That's good.
I'll throw one last thing in it, because I would not be doing my profession and what I believe in justice as a business development specialist without doing, and it's not shameless, without doing a plug, get Mark's book.
Thank you.
I own multiple copies of it. I don't have a signed copy of it yet, unfortunately, but get the book. It's on, where do I get it again, Mark?
You get it at markgordon.ca. You'll look for the book and you can order there. It'll take you to Amazon or Kindle or all the different places you can buy it. And it was written really for like for families, but it actually, I've been hearing from lots of business people that any organization, if they apply the principles, it'll create a healthy relational culture. And that was my passion in doing it, is I want to help people develop healthy relational cultures. I also have online courses, the 5 pillars of a healthy relationship, and you can find everything at markgordon.ca. So thanks, Chris, for that plug. And feel free to head over there and just check it out. If you're watching this video on either Facebook or YouTube, please subscribe or like my Relationship Matters page on Facebook, or subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'd love to have you as one of my subscribers there, and we have all kinds of conversations that will benefit you. I have guests on all the time that can benefit your relationships, and so I really appreciate if you would do that. And and then this talk will be evergreen on YouTube and on Facebook, but also by Monday we'll have it in podcast format, so you can go to any podcast platform, Apple and Amazon and Spotify, and just hit Relationship Matters by Mark Gordon, and it'll pop up, and you can subscribe there as well, and you can listen on the go. And so thanks, Chris. I appreciate you coming on. even though you twisted my arm for many, many weeks, always saying, when are you going to have me on? Like, what?
Well, I didn't do that.
I
I
know.
mean, I wanted to be your first guest as your best friend,
Yeah, you were a
but
little
I'll just
jealous.
say
I
this.
had,
I'll say this to Jen, Cynthia, Melissa, and Ian, who you know who you are. Get to work, okay? Quit IMing. Remember, relationships matter.
oh, Sandy wants you to know she has a signed copy.
Okay, good. Excellent. Excellent. Thanks so much for having me, Mark. It was a real pleasure
Thanks,
to
Chris.
spend an hour with you like this. I hope people got something, and I hope they
I
comment,
do.
because good feedback and bad feedback, I think it's important to see what people are thinking out there, and if there's some like-minded, and even
Yeah.
if there's not like-minded, I'd love to hear comments. So thanks for
Yeah.
having me.
Yeah, thank you. And I agree with that. I would love people to make the comments and stuff. So thanks everybody for being here today. We will see you next Thursday, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll have a special guest on then. And so keep watching my feeds. You'll find out where to find us. And great to see you today. And we look forward to seeing you next time.
Are you seeing me next week?
No, you're the most special guest. I'm just having a special guest on next week.
Thanks, Mark. Ciao.